حمدتني غمرتني بالبركة.
Qur'an is the final book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is the absolute word of Allah. And every aspect of the Qur'an is such that if a person pays attention to it and gives it time, it becomes a means of their salvation. The words of the Qur'an, the meanings of the Qur'an, the ahkam, commandments and injunctions mentioned in the Qur'an, the stories and incidences mentioned in the Qur'an, the lessons and the signs, the subjects, every aspect of this Qur'an is miraculous, and it becomes a source of light and guidance, blessings and forgiveness, and they become a source of salvation for the Muslim. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this book of guidance. It is necessary for us to establish a strong connection with it. The Qur'an is not beneficial to us if we are not making the effort to benefit from it. So, the first and foremost responsibility on every Muslim towards the Qur'an is to actually read it. Reciting the words of the Qur'an are the fundamental and the basis of the connection between a person and the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we don't read it, the things that come afterwards are obviously all lost. Some people say that there's no point in reading it without understanding it. This is not correct. There is a point in reading it, even without understanding it. Of course, the Qur'an has been revealed to understand. There's no denying this. But to say that there's no point in reading it without understanding it is baseless. It's false. Because the Qur'an is the one book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that every letter that a person recites, it brings rewards. Every letter brings 10 hasanat. And one hasana may be the deciding factor between a person's salvation and doom on the Day of Judgment. It could be just one hasana that a person is missing. And they will run to family members, parents, children, spouses to borrow that one hasana from them. But nobody will be able to give. Nobody will be willing to give them a single hasana. So the recitation of the Qur'an should not be undermined. So the first and foremost step is to start reciting the Qur'an more and more and more. And reciting it correctly. If we do not know how to correctly pronounce the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we should learn it. Because the Qur'an was not just revealed with its words to be recited in any which manner. But the manner of recitation was also taught to the Prophet ﷺ. And when the Prophet ﷺ taught the Qur'an, he taught it with its correct pronunciation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself says, وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. And we revealed this Qur'an with tartil. We recited it and revealed it slowly, clearly, properly. And the command of Allah is also وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Recite it with tartil. Properly, clearly, pronouncing every letter properly. knowing where to stop, where not to stop. So, some time has to be devoted to this. Because to recite the Qur'an with tajweed is fard. And to recite it against the rules of tajweed is impermissible. And it is a major sin. To recite in that way and to listen to recitation in that way. It's an obligation. It's not just for a hafiz or a qari or an imam to correct his recitation of the Qur'an. It's the responsibility of every single Muslim, man and woman. The second thing is to devote a part of the day specifically and exclusively for the recitation of the Qur'an. Some time has to be allotted for this. In the beginning, based on how much time we can take out. But some time has to be allotted for this every single day. We came out of the month of Ramadan, and most people got in the habit of reciting some Qur'an. People tried to finish as much as they could. Then Ramadan passes, slowly the habit withers away. And then the next thing you know, several months all of a sudden pass without regular recitation of the Qur'an. So some time has to be fixed for that and that only. Like a time is fixed for a meal. A person says, no, that's my meal time. A time is fixed for work. A time is fixed for appointments. Time must be fixed for the recitation of the Qur'an. And once that time is fixed, there should not be any accommodation for anyone else or any other activity in that time. When the tribe of Thaqif came to accept Islam, the Prophet ﷺ had set for them the time after Isha to sit and teach them. This was a very important tribe. They had come after a great deal of sacrifices on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims. So he had designated a time for them. But one day, after Isha, the Prophet ﷺ went into his home, and he did not come out till a very long time had passed. The tribe of Thaqif is waiting for him to come out so that he can teach them. So he came out quite late, and then he told them the reason. He said, today, because of other responsibilities and other emergencies that came up, I was not able to finish my tilawat of the Qur'an. So I was sitting there after Isha completing my recitation. And then he said that I don't give anyone preference over my Qur'an. This was the extent of the importance and the sight of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of his daily recitation. Just recitation. So to fix a time for our tilawat and to be steadfast in that is from the sunnah. It's something that every Muslim needs to somehow bring into our schedule. Now, you can do it based on how much time you have, or you can do it based on how much you want to read. For example, somebody decides that I'm going to read one juz every day. Now it could take them 15 minutes, it could take them 20 minutes, it could take them a half an hour or more. But they have decided that every day I'm going to finish one juz of the Qur'an. And this is good. This is very good. When Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, how frequently should we complete the Qur'an in our recitation? So he said, finish it once every month. And when they said, no, we can read more, then you advise them to finish it twice a month. And if they would say, no, we can do more, he would say, fine, finish it once a week. So there were many Sahaba who were finishing the Qur'an once a week. This is actually where you'll find in some mushafs, you'll find that there's a manzil. They'll say first manzil, second manzil, third manzil. There's 7 manzils. This is to facilitate finishing it in 1 week. And other people read by juz. It doesn't matter. The point is, you should fix an amount and stick to it. So if you have fixed 1 juz, you're going to read that 1 juz in the time that you have designated. And if for some unforeseen circumstances you could not finish it in that time, you're going to finish it before you go to sleep. Whether that means taking out less time for recreation, less time for eating, less time for resting, less time for socializing, all of that is fine, but this must be completed before I go to sleep. This is how regularity is established. You have to discipline yourself. The other way to do it is to designate a time that I'm going to give a half an hour, 20 minutes, 25 minutes to recitation of the Qur'an. As much as I can do in that time is fine. But then we stick to it. So if we had designated 30 minutes for tilawat of Qur'an, then if for some unforeseen circumstance we could only read for 20 minutes, we're going to make up for those 10 minutes somewhere before we go to sleep. This is how a person's ta'alluq, a person's connection with the Qur'an is established. If you take it haphazardly or with a very lethargic attitude, okay, I'll read it when I get time. I will try my best. Sometimes we make this intention, I'm going to try to start reciting the Qur'an. But what does that mean? How do you define that? And because we're not reciting the Qur'an, we're not taking the next leap towards understanding it. It's funny, sometimes we hear people discussing topics of the Qur'an. They don't even read the Qur'an. How much Qur'an do they actually read every single day? These people that are engaging in all of these fancy intellectual debates about the Qur'an, how much time are they actually given to the Qur'an, to reciting it every single day? The other thing, which is very important in helping us develop a stronger connection with the Qur'an, is to recite the surahs and the ayat that we have been taught to recite at specific occasions. For example, the Prophet ﷺ himself used to recite and instructed the ummah to recite certain things from the Qur'an at certain times. And these recitations of these small bits are for our benefit. They're for our protection. And of course we're getting reward every time we recite the Qur'an. For example, a hadith of Muslim states that a person who recites the last 3 verses of Surah Al-Hashr, وَاللَّهُ الَّذِي لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ عَالِمُ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ, towards the end. And before that recites أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ السَّمِيعِ الْعَلِيمِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ 3 times. So you recite أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ السَّمِيعِ الْعَلِيمِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ 3 times, then you recite these last verses. What happens? The hadith says that if he recites this in the morning, 70,000 angels pray for his forgiveness until nighttime. And if he recites it in the evening, 70,000 angels pray for him till the morning time. And if he dies anywhere in between, in the day or in the night, in the sight of Allah, he is written as a shaheed. How long does it take to recite it? Not even 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes. Ayatul Kursi in the morning, in the evening, and after every fard salah. A person who recites Ayatul Kursi at both ends of the day is protected from harms in between. And it's mentioned in a hadith that a person who recites Ayatul Kursi after every salah, the only thing between him and Jannah is death. Similarly, the Mu'awwidhatayn, and adding Qul Huwallahu Ahad to them as well. So Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Surah Ikhlas, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq, Qul A'udhu bi Rabbin Nas, reciting them 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening. It takes seconds, but all of the things that we worry about, undue harm, evil eye, someone doing something to us, someone looking at us with jealousy, with hatred, this person is protected from all of these elements. Similarly, the last two ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah, the Prophet ﷺ says that a person who recites them before he goes to sleep, kafata, they suffice for him from every problem. Complete security. You recite these and you don't have to worry about anything. Similarly, reciting Surah Al-Waqi'ah after Maghrib, sometime before you go to sleep. It's mentioned in Hadith that a person, that house in which this is recited regularly in the evenings, that house is not inflicted by poverty. Surah Al-Mulk, for protection from the punishment of the grave. It's mentioned in one Hadith that a person who recites this regularly, this surah of 30 verses, it's going to intercede for him in the grave. Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, a person who reads these regularly, it's mentioned in Hadith that they will come on the Day of Judgment as two clouds or as two pillars of light, and they will testify in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the person who recites them. Another Hadith mentions that don't make your houses into graveyards. Recite the Qur'an in them. That house in which Surah Baqarah is recited, shaitan cannot enter into that house. Reciting Surah Al-Kahf every Friday. It's mentioned in some hadith, a person who recites the first few verses. Another hadith mentions a person who recites the last few verses. Another hadith mentions a person who recites the whole Surah of Kahf. He is protected from the fitna of Dajjal. Another Sahih hadith it's mentioned that a person who recites this on Fridays, a pillar of nur, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates a pillar of nur that emerges from where he is all the way up to the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so on and so forth. These, today we ask about which wazifa I should read. Say, Imam Sahib, give me some wazifa. Give me something to read. I have this problem, I have that problem. There is no greater wazifa than the Qur'an and the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a shifa lima fi sudur. It is a cure for all the problems we have inside. Every time you read it, you're getting access to that cure. Every time you read it, you're cleansing yourself. Every time you read it, you are having access to the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, just by doing this, and these things can be done, just walking around doing your things. You don't have to sit down and recite this. Even if a person takes out some time and memorizes these things, that's it. You can recite it wherever you are. Even if you're not in the state of wudu, you can recite it from your memory. One Sahabi complained to the Prophet ﷺ that, "O Prophet of Allah, whenever I go out on my journeys, I find that my money runs out very quickly, and my condition is always worse than that of my companions." Okay, this is mentioned in Tabarani. So the Prophet ﷺ instructed him that next time you go on your journey, you recite these surahs and recite Bismillah in the beginning of each surah. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ. Then skip تَبَّتْ يَدَا. Read قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Read these 5 surahs with Bismillah before each one, and then read Bismillah at the end. You try this next time you go on your journey. So the Sahabi, after some time he came back. He said, "O Prophet of Allah, I have started reciting this every time I go for my journey, and I find that I always have more money left over than my companions do. And I find that I'm always in a better condition than my companions." This is for us. These are all gifts for us. It's much better to turn towards these a'mal than to go chasing after this wazifa and that wazifa. These are the things that need to be adopted, make them a part of our lives. Sahaba say that whenever we were having difficulty in a battle, we would recite this verse, أَفَحَسِبْتُمْ أَنَّمَا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ عَبَثًا وَأَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْنَا لَا تُرْجَعُونَ. End of Surah Mu'minun, the 18th juz. We used to recite these verses every morning. He said, it never happened that we went into a battle and we recited these verses, except that we won. So when we're facing difficult circumstances, somebody has exams, somebody has a tough interview coming up, somebody has challenges at work, use these for your own benefit. No one else benefits from them except for us. But it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of focus and concentration, that I'm going to make this a part of my daily routine. And it very easily becomes a part of the daily routine. Very easily. In the beginning, you might have to write them down. You might have to have them to memorize. That's fine. In fact, some time ago, we distributed a small booklet, pocket size, for the musallis that has many of these surahs and many of these ayat. So, in the beginning, you have to look and read. After a while, it commits to memory, and then you just read it, doing your things, on your way to work. So the bottom line is that we have to increase our connection with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sitting down, fixing a time and reciting it every day. And secondly, reciting it for all of these affairs, at all these different parts of the day. In the morning, in the evening, after our salawat. And we will find that this Qur'an has so many solutions and so much peace and comfort for us every single day. And every single Muslim, man, woman and child has access to it. Sahaba say that we did not think in our time, we could not imagine that there was any Muslim. We could not imagine that there was any Muslim who would go to sleep without reciting the last few ayat of Surah Al-Baqarah. We could not imagine there was a Muslim like this. It was so common. The practice was so common. So we should take out some time and give this some attention. Many of our problems will start going away. Our fears, worries, hesitations, discomforts, and many of our sicknesses, paranoia, doubts, suspicions will start leaving us just because of the barakah of the kalam, of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to start moving in this direction, giving this time. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to establish such a strong connection with the Qur'an that on the day of judgment the Qur'an intercedes for us. The Prophet ﷺ says, اقرأوا القرآن فإنه يأتي يوم القيامة شفيعا لأصحابه. Recite the Qur'an frequently and profusely, because on the day of judgment it's going to intercede for those people who are very closely attached to it. May Allah give us tawfiq.